Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, I want to give you my thoughts on why I do not believe that people should be put in prison for selling or dealing drugs. Okay? I know many of you may think that what I've already said sounds crazy, sounds ridiculous, but hear me out. Allow me to give you my reasoning behind what I'm saying and then decide for yourself if it really is that crazy. Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind in this discussion is that no drug dealer is forcing anyone to purchase or use any drug. Okay? Now, of course, I make exception to anyone who provides anything dangerous, illicit to children and minors. So let's remove that part of the equation immediately from the conversation. I'm talking about adults. I don't believe that people should be put in prison for what I call victimless crimes. Okay? For me to say that a crime has been committed and someone's life should be potentially ruined and you should take them and put them in a cage like an animal, I want to see the victim. Who is the victim? Okay? And if you can't clearly point out this is the victim of the criminal, then there's no crime. Some of you may say that it is the user and the purchaser of the drugs that is the victim. To that, I would respond, we have free will. We live in a free country. People have the freedom to do wonderful and great things or to destroy themselves and ruin their lives, kill themselves, whatever it is. That's life. And if you feel so strongly that the dealer, the provider of the substance, should be held accountable for the negative things that may come as a result of someone using that substance, then how do you distinguish between this and government allowing big corporations to sell cigarettes and alcohol? Cigarettes and alcohol have a much more significant negative impact on our society, even so far as actual deaths as a result of use, than all drugs combined. So it's okay for them. No one's going after the liquor store owner when someone kills themselves as a result of drinking too much or crashing into a car while they're drunk and killing little children. No one does that. No one goes after the tobacco companies when people are dying of lung cancer, dying as a result of smoking cigarettes and abusing their products. And the reason they don't is because free will, free enterprise, and capitalism. So what we're really talking about here, what it really comes down to is that the government decides who gets to provide the drugs to the people. That's really what it comes down to. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that. The number one drug problem that we have in our country, in the United States of America today, it's not heroin, it's not cocaine, it's not crack, it's not marijuana, it's not PCP, it's none of those things. It is prescribed painkillers, opiates. Now, these opiates are being given to the public from doctors. The government authorized the doctors to give this medicine out to the people. It is killing more people than all of those aforementioned drugs together, combined. Significantly more. And yet, the doctors don't get blamed when this happens. The government doesn't get blamed when this happens. And not only are they providing the substances to the people, but they're also then changing accessibility, regulations, and law sometimes, where they've created a situation of people who are chemically dependent and addicted to these heroin pills, which is virtually what they are, and now lose access to them. What happens then? Most people, the majority of people, do not have the mental or physical strength to go through withdrawals. All right? I went through it myself from painkillers. I have a very serious back issue to this day that I deal with. I'm in pain almost all the time. And years ago, On its onset, when it was much worse, I was told that I would never walk again if I didn't have major surgeries in my back. I did not take the surgeries, but I was given painkillers, and I was given as many as I needed. I had no idea about these drugs. And to make a long story short, I stopped cold turkey. And what I went through was a nightmare. It almost killed me. It almost killed me. I could barely do it. And I'm much stronger than the average person is. So I understand, as a result of having gone through it myself, that it's not an easy thing to do. So when those people now lose access to these pills, they go to the street and they start buying heroin for $5 a bag, and they start injecting themselves because that's the only way they can remove the withdrawal pains and continue to get whatever drug they needed and are hooked on. So my point is, why is the drug dealer imprisoned for up to decades at a time, sometimes life? People are doing life for selling drugs. They've never forced anyone to purchase the drugs. It doesn't make sense to me. It does not make sense that society would support this. It makes sense to me that the government supports this because for them it's all about money and power, and in my opinion, it may sound crazy to you, also about keeping minorities down, black people especially. And this is the number one way that they do. The government understands that many people are in a deprived economic situation where they lack opportunity to really provide for themselves in any lawful way. So what happens? They see an opportunity here, a market demand that the government created, okay, by creating laws that go against what a significant percentage of their citizenry wants. They want these drugs. And then these poor black people fill that void, fill that need, and have their lives destroyed and get put in prison. Their families suffer as a result, their children suffer, and on we go. It just doesn't make sense. I understand crime. This is not a crime. It's not a crime unless it's done against children or unless it's forced in some way. So I share this with you guys because very infrequently do I ever hear anyone feeling the way I do about this. And I wanted to explain myself, explain my position, so maybe you guys can relate in some way and realize that what I'm saying is true. There's no crime because there's no victim. The government's full of shit. They decide what's good and what's not. And the only reason these things are illegal are what I said: money and control. That's it. Even weed. Now they're legalizing weed basically across the country. And there are still people sitting in prison for decades, for the rest of their life, as a result of convictions that had to do with selling weed. The government's definitely not going to retroactively apply the law and release all these people. They're not going to do that. So how is that fair? How does that make sense? The government can license anyone to sell dangerous, deadly things even. But when people on their own decide to try to make money for themselves and sell something that's in demand, they didn't create that market demand, the government ruins their lives. I don't believe in it. I'll never support it. Part of the reason why I think I feel as strongly as I do about this topic of incarcerating people for bullshit is because I know what it's like to be there. I know what the fuck jail and prison is. It's a nightmare. It's degrading, it's humiliating, and it creates a much worse person than the one that went in for the majority of the time. I have rage inside me where I want to seek vengeance and fucking kill these people who put me in these cages and treated me like a fucking dog. That's the result of being in prison and jails. And I actually did things that would justify going there. I actually did. So I deserved it way more than a person who sells a drug. He's not violent. He's not a threat to anyone. He's not a danger to anyone. And something even worse than putting them in prison for selling the drug is that in the last couple of years, there has been a change and a shift in drug-induced death liability charges. Where now I could sell you a drug, never know who the fuck you were, never seen you before, you go on your way, and you overdose and die from that drug, and I get charged. How the fuck is it my fault what you do? It makes no sense. It's the same logic as they apply towards liquor license owners and bars. Bars are now accountable and have been for many years for over-serving someone. Someone's drinking too much, they get in their car and crash and die or kill someone else, and the bar gets sued, or the bartender could be arrested and is held liable. What the fuck? Either we're a nation of free citizens or we're not. With freedom comes the responsibility of making good decisions and also the consequence of making bad ones. So I can't agree with any of this, guys. This is just the way I feel about it. I am interested in hearing the opposing side. Tell me where I'm wrong in this. Explain to me how my views are incorrect, please, if you feel that way. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.